Listen, I can't think of an artist right now with the expectations that Lorde has. She just released her new album, Virgin. We're going to get into it. Plus 7 unreleased Springsteen albums just came out. If you're like me and a new music day is a big deal for you, today is basically heaven. I'm Elamin Abdelmahmoud. This is Commotion. Oh my God, the group chat is here. Vish Khanna is here. Niko Stratis is here. Carl Wilson is here. Hello to all of you. Welcome.
Hey, how's it going?
Hi, it's so nice to have you. Okay, we're going to talk about this gigantic Springsteen box set in a moment because I don't have the arms to lift it. It's a gigantic thing. But first of all, I want to sort of actually start the show by paying our respects to a legend that we lost this week. You might know Quebec progressive folk rock band Harmonium. That is them. The band's lead singer, Serge Fiori, died this week at 73. Carl, I'm going to start with you on this one because you lived in Montreal for a long time. Give us a sense of why Serge Fiori was so important to the evolution of Quebecois music.
Yeah, I mean, Harmonium emerged in the early 70s at a time when there were kind of 3 strands going on of Quebecois music. There was traditional folk music, and there was rock and roll, and there was sort of poetic singer-songwriter chansonnier music, which was kind of its own category. And Harmonium really distinguished themselves by bringing those 3 things together. You know, Serge Fiori was famous for this sort of beautiful, poetic approach to lyrics, but the band also had this, you know, unlike other members of that kind of movement at the time, they had a much more expansive musical palette, bringing this folk music and this sort of broad prog rock style kind of expansive conceptual approach in. And so that really made them stand apart. And they were kind of a generation that kind of was representing Quebecois culture coming to self-consciousness and maturity and the nationalist movement of the time and expressing itself in the world. And because Harmonium's music was so accessible and pretty, it reached beyond Quebec's borders to listeners across English Canada, especially, and then in the US and the rest of the world. And so, you know, on one hand, they were kind of similar to movements elsewhere in the world of bringing traditional music and prog rock together at the time. You know, you think of like Fairport Convention in the UK and bands like that in other countries. And they were also kind of a forerunner of Quebecois culture asserting itself by exporting its culture to the rest of the world. So in that way, they were kind of also like a precedent to Cirque du Soleil. And so they have kind of a monumental status, even though they only existed for like 5 years and put out 3 albums. You know, it's a cultural achievement that everyone recognizes. And Serge died on Saint Jean-Baptiste Day as well. So there's a symbolic weight to that.
So the reason I want to start the show there is just because I think it's important to sort of recognize when we have had legends and when they have passed on and sort of take a moment to sit with that. There's much more of a tribute to Serge on CBC News, so you can go there and find out. But in the meantime, I want to pivot to a legend that we do have. I'm so grateful that we have him. A delightful sentence that you don't get to say out loud very often. Hey, let's hear some new music from Bruce Springsteen.
In bloody
There's like a religious thing that happens when Springsteen does that sort of growl. Like, I was watching both of your faces, both Vish and Niko, and you guys were like closing your eyes, being like, we are not here. We are somewhere else. That song is called Rain on the River. It's one of 83 new Bruce Springsteen songs on this box set called Tracks 2. It is made up of 7 lost albums, which kind of gives you the illusion that like Bruce Springsteen walked into his basement and was like, what are these? That's wild. We should probably put these out because I've never put these out before. Niko, I'm going to start with you on this one. This is a box set that spans from 1983 all the way to 2018. The vast majority of it recorded in the 1990s. Where was Bruce in this era? Like, why did he have so much music just kind of stockpiled but not released out to the public?
The 90s are such a funny period for Bruce because, like,
He has referred to like people saying that that's his lost decade. I mean, he has very few records come out in the 90s. Like he has two come out at the same time, Human Touch and Lonely Town or Lucky Town. Yeah, Lucky Town comes out in 92. He does Streets of Philadelphia in 93, and then Ghost of Tom Joad comes out in 95.
Yeah.
And that's kind of it. You know, it's not till The Rising comes out in 2002 that we get anything new from Bruce. So like it is this lost period. He's moved to California at this time. Like he's in Los Angeles, he's having kids, he's having a family, and he's made a lot of music and we just never heard it. So now it is this interesting thing. Listening through this now, it is interesting to hear where was Bruce in this era that we didn't really hear a lot from him. What did he sound like? What was he doing? What was he trying to do? And how would this have felt if it came out in the years that he recorded them? You know, like had he put a country record out in 95 when he also did Ghost of Tom Joad, would people have been into it? And it's impossible to know the answer to that question, but now we have 83 tracks through which to wonder, like what would have happened if Bruce was just throwing spaghetti at the wall his entire life?
I mean, I will say that like the idea of like having a divorce album come out at the end of the 90s, it's fine to take a decade to be like, let me regroup and only put out 3 albums in these 10 years. Like to me, there's something sort of beautiful actually about the idea that he's like, I'm going to step away for a moment and do some other things. But it turns out that Bruce can't not make music. And then suddenly you kind of get this moment, Vish, where you are not confronted with, but blessed with, shall we say, a gigantic flood of new Bruce Springsteen songs that sort of range in their styles. We have a country sort of style album. We have some orchestral stuff. He's working with a lot of different styles. What's it like sort of waking up and be like, oh my gosh, look at all this, the Bruce bounty, if you will?
I think those of us who follow older artists are becoming accustomed to people putting out outtake or unreleased material collections. In my memory, and I might be wrong, I can't think of anything like this. I can't think of any artist of his caliber being like, here's 7 complete albums I made that I put out other stuff instead of this.
Yeah.
So here you go. So when these collections come out, one thing beyond just marveling at the music that we get to hear, fans have to reckon with what our favorite artists' decision-making processes are, their indecisiveness, their contemplation, like the fact that they really think about these things, like, what am I going to do with this? And this particular set had me thinking, like, what if Bruce and Dylan, like Bob Dylan, by the way, is who I'm referring to there.
I don't know any other ones, but yeah, that's fair.
Know.
Yeah.
Joni
Jacob
Mitchell. What if Miles Davis, Neil Young, all these people had Bandcamp or SoundCloud? Can you imagine? Like these days, everyone's just like, "Hey, everyone, I made a record last week. Here you go."
Yeah.
These folks sit on these things, and I think it's kind of interesting because we're kind of like, okay, you didn't put this out. It's perfect. You know, this is great. And I think, you know, the other thing we wrestle with as fans is the stuff that did come out. I don't know if it's as good as this now.
Hey.
So you just are all, just to me.
I'm hearing the rising slander underneath that.
No, I
Okay,
like the Rising.
Yeah,
I
me
like
too.
the Rising. Just I mean, I love Bruce. I've seen the E Street Band so many times.
Yeah.
But the other, like, I just think it's fascinating that Bruce and some of the other people I mentioned are able to provide us these alternate histories while they're alive. Like, that's really unusual to have all these people be like, here's what I did, here's what I could have done.
Yeah.
Here you go. I mean, I just think, and I mean, this decision making spills into all sorts of aspects of what they do, like lyrical fragments showing up. Like, we know a song like Downbound Train from Born in the USA. We know that song. It shows up here on a different song. Like, it shows up on the song Black Mountain Ballad. You hear about Joe, I Gotta Go. Decisions, like, just interesting decision making. So, sorry, I just want to say, like, part of this, the joy we feel is also having to reckon with, like, the like, just how much decision making is done that maybe doesn't make sense, but it's feelings. It's just like, this is a vibe.
The man will sort of create an album that is like basically perfect and go, this can maybe wait 30 years. Benson Boone will make an album in 17 days and go like, that seems really good enough. Carl, I want to.
Why did you bring up Benson Boone
I'm
again?
sorry.
I was
I'm
just
sorry.
on.
I know. I'm sorry. It's actually it's Vish's wake word. I'm so sorry to bring that up. Carl, when you look at this box set, what does this box set tell you about what Bruce Springsteen maybe wants us to know about him right now?
I mean, it doesn't tell us anything we don't already know after the last 15 years or more of outtake albums and bonus discs
And Broadway performances, right? Like, yeah.
Yeah, and we're aware that Bruce like produced work like a MF
Nice.
at all times.
Yeah.
But yeah, there is this project, I think, in the last decade particularly, of really putting the archives in order alongside telling his story in his autobiography, alongside doing the Broadway show based on the autobiography,
Yes.
alongside making these documentaries. Like, Bruce Springsteen wants to tell the Bruce Springsteen story. And the interesting thing is that he's willing to tell it now in a broader way. You know, when Jay's just talking about the choices that were made to put these albums out or not, like, I think a big part of it is that a lot of the projects here didn't suit the story that Bruce wanted to tell about Bruce Springsteen at particular times. They're not the heroic man of the people, masculine Bruce Springsteen at all times. They're kind of the weird artist Bruce Springsteen, like obsessively making stuff in the garage studio, right?
Yeah.
And so at various points he veers away from putting out the orchestral pop album, from putting out the synthesizer album, from putting out the kind of more mainstream country album instead of the like Woody Guthrie-esque country album. So all of those choices I think show up here, and you know, there's a romance to the idea of lost albums, and there's also kind of the like indications of strategy and fears about public perception and all of those kinds of things that are the backside to all of that.
So I just want to because there's so much music to dig into with this. I just want to play Niko. This song stuck out for you. Let's hear Repo Man.
Well, there's a man who leads a life of danger. With everyone he meets, he stays a stranger. He's a repo man. Oh, baby, that's a repo man. Well, hey.
You know what I like about you, Niko? I like that you like just an artist having a good time. I like that's what this is. I know that you love 10th Avenue Freeze Out, which like a lot of critics are like, what is this song? And it's like, this is Bruce introducing you to his friends. How fun is that? But talk to me about, you know, the fact that we got a country album from Bruce a couple years ago called Western Stars. Perfect record, by the way, perfect pandemic record. But this is like a sort of a big scale country album. Talk to me about hearing Bruce in this mode. What about it stuck out for you?
I mean, I love the energy of Bruce Springsteen yelling at people. Like, Repo Man is like the ultimate form of Bruce Springsteen counting to 4. Like in the beginning, like, you know, like the Santa Claus is Coming to Town single when he's just like opens with like a half drunk uncle like wandering through a house party yelling about like looking for his keys. You know, like I like that spirit of him. And I also just like to think of, you think of country music in the mid 90s and you think of like Ellen Jackson's on the charts or whatever. And then imagine Repo Man showing up there and like, well, who's this? Who's yelling at me? Why is he mad? Like, but I like this swaggering Springsteen because it's, you know, so much of this is about identity, right? And like the different versions of Springsteen that he allows the audience to see. So much of him is about allowing people in when he chooses to let them in. And I like when he lets them into his more sort of swaggering persona that is loud and boisterous and is like kicking up dust in a bar you're afraid to go into that has peanuts all over the floor and like some blood that's been there for some time. And it feels really real in this way that is also an act, you know? It is like, we were talking about Tom Waits before we started recording this, and it's kind of Waitsian in its own way of like, this is a performance of a man that isn't real, but I have made him real in order to turn him into a record. And I think that is a really beautiful thing. Like, there's a lot of really beautiful songs on this album, but I love when he allows himself to be a caricature of himself.
What I love about that is that you're like, hey, Nebraska's great, but have you heard Darlington County? Like, you're like, let's get big scale Bruce, because like Bruce is someone who has a lot of fun with his music.
Again, I want the 10th Avenue Freeze Out movie. Like, I don't want a biopic of him making Nebraska. I want a biopic of him meeting Steve Van Zandt.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. Okay, I want to play another song. Let's hear Blind Spot, actually.
We inhabited each other like it, some kind of disease. I thought that I was blind, but I'm
Okay, so this lost album is called The Streets of Philadelphia Sessions, an entire album that he recorded and shelved around the time that he wrote the song that won an Oscar, Streets of Philadelphia, from the 1993 movie Philadelphia. Carl, I want to ask you about this because I feel like this might be like the most radical departure of the sort of classic Springsteen, the thing that you expect. Why do you think this is an important chapter in the way that we think about Springsteen? Because I don't think we fold that into his story enough.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's along the lines that I was saying earlier. It's this sort of roads not taken,
Yeah.
you know, and this is one of the few things on the box set that I think would change the story a little bit if it had come out. But, you know, he made this one song. Everybody loved the song Philadelphia. It wins an Oscar. So he goes into the garage, into the home studio, makes a whole album of that, teaches himself to make loops, is listening to like West Coast hip hop because he's in LA at the time. Also listening to like trip hop and other kind of techno music coming out of the UK at the time, and kind of wants to see if he can play around with those textures, and then gets cold feet about it and thinks, you know what I think I should do? I've made too many like relationship albums. Fans don't really like it when I use synthesizers so much. And so I'm going to get the E Street Band together and make this greatest hits album and put some bonus tracks on that. And just then this project was on the verge of coming out when it was canceled. It was pretty much done and it's just shelved. And it's really too bad. And you know, and it's funny too, because you think of people like Bowie or U2, who in that kind of same phase of the 90s were thinking the same thing, like drawing on loops and beats and seeing if they could use it to refresh their sound and create a dialogue with younger generations of musicians. And that's part of their story as we understand it. And it's not a way that we think of Bruce in the 90s.
I mean, if anything, to me, Vish, this feels a little bit anti-curatorial, right? Like the idea of like, if you spent a long time saying, this is a story, it's a very tight story, it's a very specific story, you know its rhythms and you know its turns, you kind of get this lost albums thing. And if you go back and slot in these albums into the times, what you get is actually Springsteen was many things, as all people are many things. And he just maybe didn't allow himself the chance to be that. And now he's maybe allowing himself the chance to be that a little bit. Last word to you on this, because we are also getting a Springsteen movie later this year.
Yes.
That's the one that Niko just mentioned. How are you feeling about the way that we sort of have a cohesive idea what Springsteen is and how we're maybe playing around with that idea?
Well, following on A Complete Unknown, which we have
Bob
this
Dylan
Dylan movie that came out, and now we've got a Springsteen thing. So I feel I have issues with biopics generally. I will say that.
Sure.
But I will say that we are encountering older musicians and their camps allowing a youthful interpretation of their careers to be presented. And I think it's twofold. The cynical part of me is like, well, they're trying to reintroduce themselves to a younger audience.
Yeah.
But the other part of it that I think is more inspiring is that, and I think of the Bob Dylan Center in Tulsa, Oklahoma, because they have this mandate. It's not just about Bob Dylan. It's to inspire young people to make and do things. So if you look at it through that lens, I think it's this movie. I mean, I know what Niko said about the subject matter, and I appreciate that. However, I do think this is potentially going to inspire young people to be like, oh, this old grizzled rocker, he was young once, actually. I didn't even know that. It didn't even occur to me that he was young and he didn't know himself and he was searching for something. He's a searcher. I'm searching for something. An artist like Lorde searching for something. Like, I think we are attracted to people who are searching for themselves in public. And that's what I think we are getting with these, again, sort of stereotypical biopics. They're often about that, someone trying to find themselves.
Yeah.
But Bruce is one of the ultimate searchers. He's done so in public. This box set is another kind, like Niko said, he's letting us into his process of trying to find himself.
My name is Elamin Abdelmahmoud. This show is called Commotion. Vish Khanna is here. Niko Stratis is here. Carl Wilson is here. There's a bunch of stuff to talk about. But in the spirit of, taking one look in the mirror and wanting to change your clothes and your hair and your face, let us hear some brand new Lorde. Let's hear it.
I might have been born again. I'm ready to feel like I don't have the answers. There's peace in the madness over our heads. Let it carry me.
That song is called Hammer. It is the opening track of the new Lorde album, which is called Virgin, that is out today. Niko, I'm going to kick it over to you because we feel like we've talked a little bit about the narrative around this album, which is like Lorde saying, hey, I have a bunch of questions about who I am as a person, a bunch of questions about my gender identity, a bunch of questions about where I'm headed as an artist. And then you kind of get this album. Would you say that that is actually the defining story of this album? Like, does it hold up when you think of it as a sort of a cohesive question throughout the album?
You know, it's less of a cohesive question and it is more of a cohesive journey to look for the words to define the question, for answers you don't know you need necessarily. Like, it is very yearning for something while still being, it is this very fun process of questioning identity in a way that is sort of a roundabout, open-ended idea that has no real answer because there's no real resolution to it. But it is this sort of searching for yourself. It is an interesting thing for a pop star in the public eye to do, right? This idea of like, well, I don't really fully know about myself. And specifically, I don't know about myself as a woman, and I don't know what my relationship is to it. And I'm working through that and I'm figuring some stuff out, you know, with the album cover, especially, that is like, in my eyes, is a nod to the Sticky Fingers cover with the zipper and the whole 9 yards.
Yeah.
This having, you know, an x-ray with with an IUD inserted, and like, you know, this idea of like, well, what does it mean to be a woman? What does it mean to have this body? What is my relationship to this body? And what does this body do in relationship with other people? It's very still lustful and playful and all of these things, but it is also like, but who am I in here? And, you know, in that, like, I think it is a very cohesive, put together thing, but I don't think it is done so in service of answering something or in having some broader question that it arrives at. I think it is searching for those words, and it is sort of scrabbling those ideas together into something that feels real.
I think that, to me, like, that's a perfect description of it, because what Lorde manages to do so well is paint you a portrait of exactly where she is. And it does not matter if that place is undefined. She's going to sort of like draw very specific and clear parameters around it. Carl, I got to acknowledge that this album's kind of landing after tepid response to the last one, Solar Power, which, by the way, people are wrong about that, because Solar Power absolutely bangs, and no skips for me. But that's neither here nor there. But how do you see this album fitting into the sort of Lorde trajectory? Because she's kind of undoing some of the stuff that she said she's about in Solar Power.
Yeah, I think that there's definitely a level where this album is a response to the response to Solar Power, where, you know, that album tried to be very low key and forward, kind of the natural world ahead of herself. And there were all these ideas that kind of fed into it. And I think, like a lot of people, I felt like it ended up with an ambiguity of tone and a kind of recessiveness that made it very difficult to grasp onto. And now I think we have a stronger sense of why, and this album is about that, and certainly what she's talked about in interviews in this album cycle is about that she was actually in like an incredible state of crisis when she made Solar Power.
Yeah.
You know, she was going through eating disorder issues,
going through stage
mood
fright,
issues, all of these things.
Yeah.
And that, you know, explains a lot of that tone from that album in a totally different way than it was sold to us at the time. And this album, I feel like, goes back and reclaims all of that history, and it really goes back to the beginning of her career and kind of says, what the hell has all this been? And, you know, calling people out a little bit along the way about ways that she was maybe exploited as a 16-year-old who, just for all of her self-possession and artistry, you know, no 16-year-old is ready for global fame in that way.
Yeah.
And I think this album is really like viscerally trying to bring all of that experience into her body and through that into the music, so that the audience can get a sense of experiencing that with her. And I agree, Niko, it's not about answering these questions. It's not, you know, the idea that this is going to resolve and now I'm a new person and I'm all fixed. You know, there's a little bit of that tone and way this is being sold that says that. And again, that's not what it's about. I think it's a really powerful statement. And especially, like, I don't think the singles have done
No, they don't
so
communicate the depth of this album. They really don't. I agree.
You know, it's a 35-minute album. It's
Yeah.
really one piece. You need to sit down and experience the story, the whole experience with her.
There's certainly a reclamation for me in this album of Lorde saying, in Solar Power, I sort of tried to say I'm someone who can answer questions. And she's returned to be like, no, the thing that I'm better at is asking them. And then there's a comfort in the return to that. I want to say thank you to all of you for being here, because we're about to run out of time. So thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Thanks, y'all. Thank you so much. My name is Elamin Abdelmahmoud. This show is called Commotion. Hey, we are going to be back on Monday. We would love to see you then. In the meantime, I'm going to be on the Canada Day show, which is 11 to 2 on Tuesday. I'll see you then. Thanks, guys.